If there's one character within Bleach who embodies the phrase never judge a book by its cover, it's definitely Unohana Yachiru. For most of Bleach, she was portrayed as the gentle, motherly captain of the 4th Division, the squad that serves as the healing unit of the Gotei 13. With her calm and soft-spoken demeanor, it had appeared that she was one of the least threatening captains, despite there being some occasional hints that there was more to her beneath the surface. Then the events of the 1000-year Blood War arc had occurred, where Kubo had given as one of the most shocking plot twists, where we learn about the existence of Unohana Yachiru, the very first Kenpachi and the most notorious criminal within the history of the Soul Society. This wasn't just a backstory reveal, we had a complete inversion of everything that we thought we had known about her character. Naturally, following this reveal, a lot of fans have been wondering just how powerful Unohana is. If she was the original holder of the title of Kenpachi, which represents the strongest Shinigami of that era, where does Unohana rank amongst the most powerful Bleach characters? Was she really one of the strongest captains of the Gotei 13? In this video, I'll be looking through the manga, anime, the databooks, and even the light novels in order to determine the true power level of Unohana Yachiru. We'll be analysing her combat feats and abilities, as well as the statements that have been said about her, and not to forget her legendary battles against Kenpachi Zaraki, just so that we could figure out her place within the power hierarchy of Bleach. Now, before the video begins, I have actually launched an all-new channel called Super Alpha EX. I already have a few videos on there, like breaking down everything that we need to know about Metal Gear Solid Delta, as well as all of the details that you should know about GTA 6 and my top 10 list of the most highly anticipated games of 2025. So if you enjoy the Bleach content that I create and you want to see what else I'm passionate about, then definitely check out my new channel Super Alpha EX. What makes Unohana such a compelling character is her dual identity. As Unohana Yachiru, she presented herself as the Soul Society's compassionate healer. Her mannerisms and the way that she had spoken had even reflected this, with her using honorifics when she was addressing anyone, including enemies. This highlights her dedication to fulfilling her duties as the captain of Squad 4. But beneath this carefully curated personality was Unohana Yachiru, a woman who would describe herself as being obsessed with battle. Her true nature was that of a battle-hungry warrior who would use any means necessary, including hidden daggers, in order to gain an advantage in combat. We see this side to her emerge during her training with Kenpachi Zaraki in the 1000-year Blood War arc, as we see a totally different expression on her face, with her eyes having a cold and predatory expression. Kubo had masterfully foreshadowed this duality of a character via some brief scenes that we see scattered throughout the series. If you think back to when Ichigo was terrified by a simple glance from her while they were traveling through the Garganta, or when even fearless Shinigami like Kenpachi's own squad members were trembling at her presence. These weren't just quirky character moments, they were deliberate breadcrumbs that Kubo had given to us, which had in actuality been building up to this revelation. The Bleach databook states that Unohana has the highest offensive abilities amongst the captains, warning that if she loses her temper, she may be the most fearsome captain. At the time when these databooks were released during the Soul Society and Arrancar arc, these statements seemed highly contradictory, especially for a captain focused on healing. But now everything does make perfect sense. We even find out that Unohana had learnt healing Kido from the Zero Division member Tenjiro Kurinji, not out of compassion, but out of a desire to prolong her fights by keeping her opponents alive for longer. Underneath these two personas, we find out that her healing and killing abilities had stemmed from the same root cause, which was her obsession with battle. The title of Kenpachi isn't just a captain's position, it is given to the strongest Shinigami of an era, someone who lives for bloodshed and battle. Only one person can hold this title in a given generation, and they are universally feared by their allies and enemies. Unohana was the first to hold this title, truly setting the standard for what a Kenpachi represents. Before joining the Gotei 13, she was known as the most notorious criminal within the Soul Society, and she had given herself the name Yachiru, which had meant 8,000 styles, as a reference to the fact that she has mastered over 8,000 different sword techniques. These had been honed over her centuries worth of battle experience. When Yamamoto was forming the original Gotei 13 approximately just over 1,000 years ago before the main series, he personally actively sought out Unohana despite her criminal status. This original Gotei 13 was described by Yuhobak as a brutal mob of killers, with Unohana easily being one of the most fearsome members of the group. As she was the founder of the 11th Division, she established its tradition of bloodthirsty combat. During the original Quincy invasion over 1,000 years ago, Unohana had fought alongside Yamamoto. The Bleach databooks describe her as one of the strongest members of that legendary generation of the Gotei 13. This speaks volumes about her combat ability. Unohana grew bored with fighting as time went on, as she was unable to find a worthy opponent to challenge her. She had wandered the outskirts of Rukongai, killing indiscriminately under the pretense of maintaining peace, until she had encountered a young boy who would later be known as Kenpachi Zaraki. This fateful meeting had changed both of their lives forever, because after experiencing the joy of a challenging fight for the first time in a while, Unohana had relinquished her title to Zaraki and had eventually transitioned to becoming the captain of the 4th Division, feeling that she was no longer worthy of holding the Kenpachi title after she had fought against the young Zaraki. So in order to properly assess Unohana's strength, we need to look at the metrics, which are spiritual pressure, combat skill, and special abilities. Spiritual pressure is the most fundamental measure of power within the series, as characters with vastly superior Reiatsu are able to negate abilities from weaker opponents and even inflict damage via sheer spiritual pressure alone. Unohana is repeatedly stated to have captain class Reiatsu at a minimum, and with it being implied that she's among the captains who have the highest level of spiritual pressure. Combat skill encompasses swordsmanship, hand-to-hand combat, Kido mastery, and battle tactics. Within Bleach, a skilled Shinigami is often able to overcome an opponent with higher raw spiritual energy via superior technique. This is very relevant for Unohana, as she does have mastery over 8,000 different sword styles like we've mentioned. The special abilities derived from her Zanpakutō can create significant advantages regardless of raw power levels. With Unohana's Minazuki, it offers her both utility and lethality, which complements her fighting style. So while figuring out her power, we need to look at statements from reliable characters, see the demonstrated feats that she has done, as well as gathering information from the official databooks and what is implied within the story. For Unohana, her battle with Kenpachi provides the most direct evidence of what she is capable of, as it's the only real time that we see her fighting at full capacity. When we try to scale characters from Bleach, you need to remember that sometimes these individuals suppress their true strength, either consciously or unconsciously. Kenpachi Zaraki is a perfect example of this, having subconsciously placed mental limitations on his own power after his first battle with Unohana. From this, we can deduce a circular reference point while scaling Unohana's power. She is in fact stronger than a suppressed Kenpachi Zaraki, who had weakened himself so that he could fight on par with Unohana. Unohana's combat abilities and skills are legendary, as they have been built upon centuries worth of battle experience, with her continuously refining her skills. At the very core of her fighting style is her unparalleled skills with the blade. Her skill with her Zanpakutō is so exceptional that she easily outclassed a 1000-year Blood War arc Kenpachi, who himself was capable of defeating Espada level opponents and even 3 Stenritter at the same time. While she was training Kenpachi, Unohana demonstrated perfect control of her strikes, attacking with precision rather than brute force. She was able to seamlessly switch between offensive and defensive maneuvers while maintaining full awareness over her surroundings. Beyond just swordsmanship, Unohana also demonstrated proficiency in hand-to-hand combat, as she had deflected Kenpachi's Zanpakutō swings with the back of her free hand, and she had blocked his attacks with her feet. This shows that she has mastery of body control and the fundamentals of martial arts. This ability to integrate unarmed techniques with her swordplay creates a versatile and unpredictable fighting style. Unohana was also shown to use hidden weapons and the sleight of hand during combat. When Kenpachi criticized her for using a concealed dagger as a cheap trick, she had scolded him for not utilizing every advantage available to him in battle. This pragmatic approach to fighting, using whatever means necessary to achieve victory, had made her especially dangerous compared to the more straightforward fighter that is Kenpachi Zaraki. With her centuries of experience, Unohana is also proficient in Shumpo, allowing her to move faster than the eye can follow. While it wasn't explicitly shown to us that she can specialize in speed like Yoruichi or Byakuya, she still demonstrates sufficient mobility to keep pace with and outmaneuver Kenpachi during their fight. What sets Unohana apart is her mastery of Kido, particularly healing techniques. After learning them from Tenjiro Kurinji, she's able to perform high-level healing Kido without incantation, as she can restore both physical wounds and depleted spiritual energy. Her analytical understanding of anatomy allowed her to diagnose and treat injuries with unparalleled efficiency. It's ironic that these same healing skills had given her intimate knowledge of how to also inflict maximum damage in combat. This knowledge had made her all the more lethal on the battlefield. What truly elevates Unohana's combat effectiveness is her strategic mind. She is able to rapidly analyze an opponent's fighting style, identify their weaknesses, and to adapt her approach accordingly. This was shown when she commented on Kenpachi's habit of fighting one-handed. We now turn our attention towards Unohana's Zanpakutō Minazuki, which manifests very different aspects of her power via the different releases of her Zanpakutō. In its sealed state, Minazuki appears as a slightly longer than average katana. Unlike most captains who wear their Zanpakutō at their waist, Unohana carries hers over her shoulder, or she occasionally has her lieutenant Isane carry it for her. When she releases her Shikai, Minazuki transforms into a giant green one-eyed manta ray-like creature. This manta ray is able to fly, provide transportation for Unohana as well as others, and it notably has the ability to heal whenever injured individuals are placed within its mouth. They end up being swallowed and stored in its stomach, where powerful healing medicines soak into their wounds. According to information from Kubo's official fan club outside, he had revealed that Minazuki is able to alter its size, as it can even become as small as a puppy at minimum. Now we really get to appreciate the extent of Unohana's power when she activates her Bankai, which strangely is also called Minazuki, but with different kanji, which means all things end, rather than the Shikai's kanji, which translates to flesh drops gorge. When she activates her Bankai, Unohana draws her hand along the blade, causing it to liquefy into a blood-like substance, which spreads to fill the surrounding area as she conjures up a lake of blood. The Bankai-enhanced Minazuki has several different devastating abilities. Firstly, it can launch slashing waves of the blood-like liquid at opponents, allowing Unohana to attack at range with deadly precision. These slashes maintain their cutting power despite being formed from that liquid. By rapidly swinging her sword in multiple directions, Unohana is able to create a defensive sphere of blood which slashes around herself, capable of repelling any incoming attacks. This defense was so effective that it was able to even initially push back Kenpachi Zaraki. The blood-like substance of Minazuki has a corrosive effect that can rapidly dissolve flesh, reducing opponents to skeletons within moments. And then lastly, Minazuki's Bankai is also able to continuously heal Unohana's own wounds, making her incredibly difficult to defeat in a prolonged battle. This regenerative ability had allowed her to also repeatedly engage with Kenpachi at full strength despite sustaining serious injuries. What makes Minazuki particularly effective is how it complements Unohana's fighting style. The blood pool extends her reach beyond the length of her blade, and the defensive capabilities protect against stronger opponents, and the healing properties perfectly allow her to fight without reservation, knowing that any wounds that she sustains will be quickly healed. So let's have a look at Unohana's feats as well as some authoritative statements which have been said about her abilities. While she has limited screen time, especially in a combat setting, the evidence that we do have about her power is telling. One of the most revealing moments comes from her interaction with Aizen after he had revealed that he has betrayed the Soul Society. According to Kubo himself in question 701, asked on his official fan club outside, Aizen had actually decided not to fight Unohana because while he was confident that he could still win against her, he had believed that if he attempted to fight her, then it would have been an exhaustive effort for him. Now this is a significant reveal from Kubo. Aizen, who is able to defeat multiple captains with ease, had recognized Unohana as an opponent who could potentially push him to his limits. The BLEACH Databook Souls gives Unohana one of the highest combined attack and spiritual pressure ratings amongst all of the captains, as she was scored 100 in both of the categories. Adding to this, her total combat stat value of 540 out of 600 places her behind only Aizen in the Soul Society arc, indicating her position as one of the strongest captains. When Unohana first appeared at Los Noches alongside other captains, her mere presence was enough to make Rudbon, the leader of the Exequias, immediately order a retreat. This highlights the respect and fear that her reputation commands even amongst the Arrancar, who have no direct knowledge of her past as the first ever Kenpachi, but they are still able to sense her immense power via her presence alone. During the 1000-year Blood War arc, when the Gotei 13 was facing extinction at the hands of the Quincy, the newly appointed head captain Shunsui had immediately identified that training Kenpachi was a key priority for them if they had hoped for victory against their enemies. He specifically had chosen Unohana for the task of training Kenpachi, indicating his belief that only she was capable of drawing out Kenpachi Zaraki's full potential. This highlights that Shunsui had recognized Unohana as being on a completely different level from the other captains. While Unohana was examining the fake corpse of Aizen, she demonstrated her exceptional analytical abilities. Despite her being under the influence of Kyoka Suigetsu like everybody else, she detected anomalies that others had missed, highlighting her perceptiveness and attention to detail. These are traits that would definitely serve her well in combat scenarios. Perhaps one of her most impressive feats is her ability to repeatedly bring Kenpachi to the brink of death and revive him during their training session within Muken. This highlighted not only combat superiority over a captain who was known for his fighting ability, but also such mastery over healing abilities that she could bring somebody back from the brink of death while being engaged with them in intense combat. From the moment that Unohana's battle begins with Kenpachi, she demonstrates complete superiority over him. Despite him removing his eye patch, his power limiter at the start of their fight, she still is able to effortlessly dodge his attacks and land precise counter strikes against him. She shows versatility by using not just her sword, but also hidden daggers and martial arts techniques, as she totally outclasses Kenpachi in every aspect of combat. What's really notable is that this version of Kenpachi was already significantly stronger than the one who had fought against Noitora and the one who had even briefly fought against Yuhobak and had defeated 3 Sternritter. Yet Unohana treats him as a novice here, calling him weak and expressing disappointment at his performance. When she repeatedly kills Kenpachi only to bring him back to life each time, the manga and the anime imply that this cycle had happened hundreds or if not thousands of times. Each near-death experience removes more of Kenpachi's self-imposed mental restrictions, gradually restoring him to the natural talent that he had initially impressed Unohana with centuries ago. The process of training Kenpachi reveals some critical aspects to Unohana's power. We see that her combat skill is so superior that she can kill Zaraki at will even as he grows stronger throughout their fight. This highlights a mastery of fighting techniques which transcends raw power. Also, her healing abilities are so advanced that she can repeatedly bring someone back from a fatal injury without diminishing her own combat effectiveness. This combination of destructive and restorative capabilities makes her uniquely dangerous, especially in prolonged battles. When Kenpachi does finally surpass her and he lands a fatal blow, Unohana proceeds to activate her Bankai as a last resort. The fact that she doesn't use this power until the very end suggests that she was holding back throughout most of their battle, relying primarily on her fundamental combat skills. Their battle leads up to the moment where Kenpachi finally unlocks his full potential as he fatally wounds Unohana. Her satisfaction in this moment reveals her ultimate purpose, which was not to defeat Kenpachi, but to restore him to his true strength. Her final words, where she acknowledges that everything that she had gained in her long life has now been passed on to him, suggests that Kenpachi has finally surpassed her in order to become the true strongest Shinigami of the era, somebody who is worthy of the Kenpachi title. So having discussed all of this, where exactly does Unohana stand relative to powerful characters like Aizen, Yamamoto, or even the Zero Division? Beginning with Yamamoto, both of them were founding members of the original Gotei 13, and they've been around within the organization for over 1,000 years. Yamamoto's Bankai Zanka no Tachi was described as powerful enough to destroy the Soul Society itself if it was used for too long. While Unohana's Bankai doesn't have this level of environmental destruction, her combat skills and experience likely put her not far behind Yamamoto in terms of overall capability. You have to remember that she is one of these special figures from that strongest generation, so she easily stands amongst the elite Shinigami, and I'm assuming that she is just slightly under the level of Yamamoto. Regarding Sasuke Aizen, we've already noted Kubo's statement that he would have been able to defeat her in the Soul Society arc, but he would have found the battle exhausting. This places her significantly above the average captain, as Aizen defeated multiple captains at the same time with minimal effort during the Fate Karakura Town arc. She is likely below Aizen's final Hokyoku empowered forms, but she could potentially challenge his Shinigami form in a prolonged fight. In terms of comparing her to the Zero Division, there's mutual respect between her and Kurinji, suggesting that she's not drastically below their level. The light novels do mention that Kenpachi Kurashiki was invited to join the Royal Guard based on his strength alone, which implies that those who hold the title of Kenpachi are generally considered to be worthy of being Zero Division members. When we compare Unohana to the other Kenpachis who have appeared throughout history, the light novels do establish that each generation's Kenpachi is typically stronger than the previous one, with Unohana being the very first who had set the standard for the other Kenpachi. However, her longevity and her continued growth over centuries had likely kept her near the top of this power hierarchy until Kenpachi Zaraki had finally surpassed her. During the Arrancar arc, Unohana immediately recognized Ichigo's potential during their journey through the Garganta, noting that even at half strength, his spiritual pressure was comparable to that of a captain's. Her ability to assess and restore his spiritual energy shows both her perceptiveness and her own substantial power reserves. Taking all of these comparisons into account, Unohana likely ranks amongst the upper tier of Shinigami captains, below individuals like Head Captain Yamamoto, Hokyoku empowered Aizen, but I believe that she is still stronger than most or if not all of the other captains of the Gotei 13. I truly love the character of Unohana and in particular her relationship with Kenpachi Zaraki. The bond between them represents a complicated power dynamic. Rather than simply being opponents or allies, they existed in a mentor-student relationship which is underpinned by mutual respect and a shared love of combat. Unohana deciding to die at the hands of Kenpachi Zaraki in order to complete his training demonstrates both her dedication to the Soul Society and her acknowledgement that her time as the strongest had passed. Despite her being such a powerful character, she never engages in combat until the moment that she has to train Kenpachi. There were several opportunities for her to fight, especially during the Arrancar arc, but Kubo did so much justice to her character by keeping her away from the battlefield until the moment was right where she was able to battle against Kenpachi and to right the wrong that she'd committed all those years ago, as she was responsible for the sin of Kenpachi placing those subconscious limitations upon himself. I've had a lot of fun analyzing Unohana's abilities, the feats that she does within the series, statements that have been said about her, as well as breaking down her legendary fight with Kenpachi Zaraki. In the end, we've determined that she is one of the most powerful characters within the series, but we have now reached the point of the video where I want to hand over the discussion to all of you. What do you guys think about the strength of Unohana Yachiru? If there's anything that I've forgotten to mention about her strength and abilities, then let me know by continuing the discussion in the comments. And lastly, thank you for making it to the end of this video, and I cannot wait to see you in my next Bleach video.
A massive thank you goes out to all of my amazing Patreon supporters for helping to make this video possible. If you also want to support the channel and see your name in the end of my videos, then check out my Patreon, which has loads of perks like early video access and so much more. Thank you for sticking around till the end of the video, and whatever you contribute will mean a lot to me.